Hello, and welcome to the Magic Moments podcast with myself, Dan Harvey, and my wife, Kizzy Harvey. In these podcasts, we seek to discuss, debate, and learn about the things that truly matter. These conversations are meant for a mature audience, as is the language. If you have a delicate mentality or sensitive ears, you may be triggered. All views expressed here are our own opinions, even when quoting facts, and we do not expect you to take what is said here at face value. All information should be critically assessed and researched before coming to a final conclusion. Your personal intuition always takes primary importance. And finally, while we encourage debate and discussion in the truth discovery process, being disrespectful or being unreasonably disruptive will not be tolerated. Words are powerful, words can change your life, and once you see, you cannot unsee.
Hello!
Hello.
Dan just made me laugh. He's so retro that he just said, "Oh, do you still have to pay for texts?"
Well, I just remember that you used to have to pay, I think it was 10p for a text when I was on Pay As You Go. It was 10p for a text. But now it must be free, right? I mean, how much does it cost them? Nothing. Electricity cost like a fifth of a penny or something. Hello, Samantha. Merry Christmas, everyone.
I thought you was going to wear your Christmas hat.
Oh, God, I was going to wear my Christmas hat.
Oh, hi, Olivia.
Have to wait
Hi,
till next
Kat.
year.
It's Kathy.
Hello,
Kathy.
Olivia.
Kathy, are you still in hospital, love? I don't know if you answered my comment because I haven't looked.
She is in hospital. I read the comment.
Oh, right, she's still in hospital. I hope you get well soon. If I sound like I'm lisping, it's because I...
Don't show them. Just
why
tell
not?
them. Just explain that you've got a bite.
I bit my tongue really badly on yesterday. Oh,
On yesterday.
I was going to say on Saturday, which was
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes, you bit your tongue yesterday.
Yes. Yeah.
Hello, Olivia. How is the little one?
Oh. Hi, Aggie. Okay, so we always start with some news and reflecting on last. This is terrible. I'm glad you're doing most of the talking tonight.
I am doing the most of talking, believe it or not.
Hey, you always do all the talking.
It's the only time I get to talk.
Yeah, so we always start with some. I literally am lisping.
What going to start with today?
No offense to anyone who's got a lisp, but it just sounds weird on me. Oh, look, Olivia's little boy is 19 months.
Oh,
gosh.
God, that's gone quick.
That's gone fast.
19 months. In my mind, he's like 2 months old, and
I was going to say 3.
will probably stay that way forever.
Yeah, so anyway, we're going to tell you our news, and then we'll have a chat about what we've covered before, and then tonight we're talking about the tarot. So, whilst I do the news, let me know in the comments if you've ever been for a tarot reading. So, I'd be interested to know. This lisp is...
And what we're going to cover today is Kizzy's got the experience of doing a tarot. I am a skeptic, or was a skeptic of the tarot. And we're going to cover, I'm going to do a little bit of science on it and a little bit of history on it so that you can sort of put it in context of what the tarot is. Because a lot of people just don't have a clue anything about it. And they believe it's purely for the purposes of telling the future. But we're going to do a bit of background on it so you've got a firm understanding of what it is. And then I'm actually going to do a card, explain a card. And then Kizzy is going to announce something about the tarot, which is a form of gift, I guess you could call it, to do with the tarot. At
the end. So Samantha says yes. Kathy says yes. So yeah, let me know your experiences. You said something at them which triggered something, but I've forgotten it already. My brain isn't functioning. Dan tried to get me drunk last night. This is why the bottle of Bailey's is here. So we had no Hunter last night because he was on Beaver sleepover, wasn't he?
They're all going to think it's for nefarious reasons now. I was only trying to, for amusement purposes, get her drunk because she hasn't been drunk for years. Many years. There's no nefariousness about it.
Why wouldn't you want to be nefarious?
Well, no,
with
I'm
me?
just saying, like, they might think, oh, yeah, get her drunk. I see how it is.
Yeah. So yeah, half a bottle of Bailey's later, and kept topping me up because didn't want to waste the ice.
Don't want to waste the ice.
So if we work backwards now through this slide, so yeah, my brain doesn't work because Dan gave me a half bottle of Bailey's, and I've got a list because I bit my tongue. Right in the middle, I finally sorted out the being able to notify you about the topic for the podcast, a reminder an hour before it starts or thereabouts, or the afternoon of, and sending you like replay details. So if you want that link to stay connected, then just put connected in the comments and I'll get that to you, because I did send out a link but it was the wrong one, and I got myself
You always have a handful of people every week who say, oh, I missed it because something, and I wish I had a message to say.
Yeah.
So now it's done. Finally, week 10.
And I got myself in a right pickle with it all. Also, the YouTube channel, do you know, I haven't checked our stats actually to see if our viewing hours have gone up. But our YouTube channel, I've now realised that it was hard to find because it was under my name, not under Mindset Magick. Even though I had Mindset Magick title, the handle was Kizzy-Ann Harvey. But I've changed that now.
Oh, right.
So you should be able to find that.
So that's why people were saying, I was looking for it and I couldn't find it.
Yes.
Okay.
Which everything's uploaded onto there as well. And, do feel free to subscribe, even if you don't want to.
Wow, this is like borderline semi-professional now. Like almost semi-professional.
I'm getting there. I was thinking that this afternoon because I've built this website here, So I did that this afternoon.
Yes.
So yeah, and the other reason my brain's not working is we also have had contact with Hunter's birth mother on Friday. So that was Christmas contact, and that always takes a lot out of me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I can do, and it's quite triggering for Hunter.
Yeah,
he normally has a week of disturbance in his mind.
You evening, Laura, you struggle. God, this talking. You struggle before more, and you're very glad when it's done, aren't you?
Yes.
The anticipation of it is worse.
Oh, it's much worse than the event. Yeah, it's just thinking about it's coming up.
Whereas the event for me, even if it's a positive-ish event, like it's never 100% positive because there's always emotions involved with it, and Hunter can always struggle. But even if it's okay, it's still, I don't know, it just drains me.
Yeah, well, when you've got runaway empathy,
yes,
then you're always thinking on behalf of all the other people, and it's an emotional event. So if you've got lots of emotional people around you, it's always going to affect you, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm basically tech support tonight and talking as little as possible because of my list.
You're going to come in more towards the middle and end. I'm going to start off mostly because I've got to set it out of night.
Yeah.
So I'm going to set it out and do the setting out mostly, and then you'll come in towards the end, and then you've got your thing to announce at the end.
Why was you a skeptic?
I was a skeptic because, so I would say that I'm. We're going to talk about this today a little bit. So it's going to sound a little bit woo-woo if you're not used to this language, right? There's something called divine masculine and divine feminine, right? Left and right side of the brain. There's a scientific side, you could call it. They have a left and right hemisphere of the brain, and they do different jobs. But the ancient people knew about this long before science knew about it, and they had different words for it. And they call it divine feminine, divine masculine energies, right? And I'm very much the masculine energy, and the masculine energy is traditionally logical, analytical, very fact-based kind of thing. So I'm like scientifically minded, let's just say naturally. So I, in my early days, would discount things I consider to be woo-woo, which I've come to learn are not woo-woo over time. I've come full circle on that. The more I've delved into things, the more I believe it, not the less I believe it. And so when I first came to you, I was 22, and I was very skeptical about tarot. How could tarot possibly work? They're just random cards which you choose at random, and then you turn them over. How could they possibly have any influence or say on the future or on anything? Like, it's a bit like drawing any old card. or a bit like going to a bookshelf and picking a book off the shelf and going, oh, this has meaning. Like, I didn't understand or get any of the concepts around it until your dad did a tarot for me, and it was spot on. So that intrigued me. Like, okay, this, I don't believe in coincidence, so what is going on here? How was he so accurate? Is it just him like using the cards as a facade, but he's really, it's just what he thinks, and so it's his mind? But at that time, he didn't know me. It was only a few months into our relationship. He didn't know me, not well enough to say what he was saying. So then it was very intriguing. So I started to investigate it from that sort of time. And as I say, the more I investigated it, the more tarot he did, the more questions I asked. Some of them obscure, some of them for other people that he'd never met. Then the more I was like, how does he keep getting all these things right? Like, these are spot on. And sometimes he made predictions which came true. Quite often he made predictions which came true. And so, yeah, that then convinced me to really go into it. And from then, I've been a believer.
Let us know in the comments if you ever were skeptical or are still skeptical, even if you're on catch up, even if this is coming to you through YouTube. We're always interested to kind of know. And if you've had any experiences, then do share them, because we can chat about them as well. Kathy says you look really tired. I don't know if to be offended or
no. You're probably slightly hungover, to be honest.
Yeah. Probably.
This is a totally open and free space, so you can put your opinion across. It's just your opinion. That's all it is. And you can just say, I don't agree with it, or I don't understand it, or I'm skeptical of it. Or you can say, no, I've had readings. I really believe in it. I've had really good readings, whatever you want to say. Olivia says she does believe in the tarot.
And wants to learn to read it herself.
I want to learn to read herself, yeah. So that's the same. I actually, because I had those readings, it made me so interested. I wanted to read it myself. And I've got my own tarot deck, and I do dabble with it every now and again. I get in the mood and I'll have a dabble with it. But I actually got a little bit more into like, where did they come from? The origin of the cards. When was the first deck made, and who was using it, and where did it come from? So I got interested in that side of it, to like, because then when you can see the birth of something, you can understand the rest of it. It's a bit like a human being. When you know what their childhood was like, you can understand the adult sort of thing. So I take it from that perspective.
Because I can do the cards, you like me to do the cards, don't you?
I like you to do the cards, but you're just natural with the cards, because you just, like, to you they tell a story to your eyes, whereas to me, my brain is fascinated by the symbols and I want to understand the symbols, but they don't create a story.
Yeah, so that's weird actually. So Kate, Herbs on the Hill Kate, when I went to Spain, she had this deck that she'd never ever used, very, very old, like 18 something it was. And I opened it and started like looking through it, and then suddenly was like, oh, is it okay? Like, like I didn't even ask. Like, I was just fascinated with it. And she was like, oh yeah, of course. And then we used them, and I did a reading with them. And the way you read them is you laid all the cards out, and you read them. So you had a
book.
Yes, you had a card that represented you. So you pull a card that is you down the bottom, and then you have these, and what it means is the distance between that card, like you, and the card in the reading would mean certain things, good or bad. And then, but I just read, Kate was fascinated because I read it like a story, but I didn't know, like you said, that's how I just see it.
That's how your brain processes it as a story.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it doesn't process it as a story. It's a load of individual, almost like comments, but I don't string them together to create anything from it. So you're what I would say like a natural reader of the cards, like your dad was.
Yeah.
It's like your dad.
He was good.
He's the best I've seen or heard, because he would just, it's like a story, but because of he's relating it to the question, and he understands how to do that. He understands how the cards are related to the question, and he applies it correctly. Obviously each card has meaning of its own right, in its own sort of sovereign state as an individual card, but to the question you've got to apply the meaning to the question, and so that is a skill.
Well, and also the other cards influence. That's why, although I really enjoyed doing my little 3-card thing on a Sunday, it's difficult, and I often ended up, for those of you that ever watched that, I often ended up reading them together almost, because I always feel like that tells a story. And so, yes, that card has an overall meaning, but if you've got two cards either side of it,
that changes the
it
meaning.
changes. Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
it's like a language, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
you can say the same sentence in two different ways and it'll have two completely different meanings.
Yeah.
So
anyway, right, go on then.
Today we're chatting about the tarot. What is the tarot? Tarot is a way to explore the spiritual self. There's 78 cards in a deck. 22 of these cards are called major arcana, and the tarot explores the connection between man, i.e. human beings, and the universe. So this chat today is only an introduction to the subject. I'm not going into vast detail. We'd be here for days. So this is just an introduction to the tarot, right? The birth of the tarot, what it is, the context, right? So you can understand what the tarot is, especially if you're skeptical about the tarot. So we're going to go to slide 1. I've got permission to use these slides, but they are not my slides, okay? These are someone else's slides. I'm not going to name them because they haven't given me permission to use their name, but they've given me permission to use the slides. So what we're talking about here, I'll just give a brief explanation because we're not going to go to the detail, but what we're looking at here is something called the Kabbalistic tree of life, okay? So you've got the microcosm and the macrocosm tree of life, left and right hand side. And the left hand side, the microcosmic, I think they'll be seeing it the same as me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on the left hand side, the microcosmic, that is everything to do with you as a human being, okay? So this is relating to the person directly, okay?
The micro, did you
The
say?
micro.
Yeah.
The macro is the universe's relationship to you. So this is outside influence to you, right? Now,
so like the star card, is that on there? Or the world? Yeah.
So in later slides, we'll see what the positions mean, but we're not going to go into the vast detail. As I say, we'll be here for days. But just understand that this is the Kabbalistic tree of life. Each position has a name, each position has a meaning, and each card on that position has a meaning. Okay.
And these are the major arcana,
and they're only the major arcana. Okay. Yeah. So as you can imagine, straight away, it creates complexity because all these cards are in very specific positions for specific reasons. Okay. So modern playing cards are based on the tarot. The tarot has suits, just obviously because the normal playing cards do, and they're derived from them. So they have suits with specific meanings. Each card of the tarot is full of his symbolic meaning. A symbol can convey a whole chapter of meaning if it were to be written in a book. The tarot's roots are ancient and go as far back as the ancient Egyptians. Now, there's argument about where the cards come from. India, Egypt. They come from around the same time, and they don't really know exactly when, but the first sort of cards you could definitely say were tarot cards around 1700 BC, but they probably go back before then. They were probably from the priests of Egypt or possibly the priests of in India. But either way, they got the same root position. So whether they came through India into the Western world or whether they came from Egypt into the Western world, they're connected. Egypt and India is connected either way. They influenced each other. So it doesn't really matter as far as I'm concerned anyway. The tarot is based on a Kabbalistic tree of life and has strong links to the order of the Masons. So the Masons adopted this and they teach it within Masonry.
What, the tarot?
Yeah. It's part of their teaching and it's part of their knowledge. If you can read the cards, you can read the hidden messages of buildings and vice versa. So the symbology of the cards are often found on Masonic buildings. And if you can read the card, you can read the buildings and vice versa. It's very interesting. I'm interested in that. I'm not saying you have to be. Just so you know. It's not known for certain, but it's thought that the tarot comes from the goddess Tara, who helped people journey towards enlightenment. She represents compassion, care, and what today we might call self-improvement. Okay, so that is where the original... Now, there is argument that it could have come from the word Torah, which is the religious book of the Jewish people. However, they're all linked to each other. So one influenced the other. Which came first, chicken or the egg? Either way, that's where people believe it to be.
Interestingly, I found out, didn't I, just then when I was looking, that in the most popular places where tarot is, so the 15 top places in the world where tarot is searched and is, around, 12 of the 15 speak Spanish of the countries.
A lot of people think it comes from the gypsies.
So very very in their culture.
Mm.
Oh yeah, Romany gypsies.
Yeah. Well, the gypsies is the full word where that word comes from. Gypsies from Egypt. So those were people that originally moved out of Egypt. So they could have brought the cards with them. Mason comments are interesting. Yeah, the Masons they have a deep connection with Egypt and a deep connection with Egyptian mythology, and so it's natural, therefore. And this is why I lean towards Egypt as well, because the Masons are very strong in their belief towards the Egyptian beliefs, and that is part of the Egyptian beliefs, and they teach it through various types of masonry. So if you put the next slide up.
No.
Oh, you're going to talk about something?
No, I did it. You mean the Tara one?
Slide 4.
No, yeah, but you haven't got these on slide 4, have you? So I was going to show the actual suits.
Oh, okay. I have got it on one of the slides.
Yeah. We're pro-air, guys. Don't worry. No, look, this is... But you can't... Well, anyway, I'll put that... Well, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that is the Kabalah there. I'm not sure how well it is easy to read, but it doesn't matter anyway, because we're not going into the great detail of it all. That is just to lay out the positions. Each one of those circles is called a separate, and that is where the cards get laid on. And you can research and understand, if you was interested in the meanings of each position and why those cards go there. And if anyone was interested, I could go into a deeper presentation. But for now, we're just understanding the context of everything. So as you can see here, the different suits of the tarot are wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. Okay, so with the wands, which is at the top here, that is also represented by the element of fire, which also represents will or action. Okay, so that is the plane of will. Okay, so that is in their world, and this is the Hebrew. So this is after Egypt came the Hebrew version of all this. You've got the Aztuth. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. Aztuleth at the top, which is the archetypal world plane of the will. So this is in order of importance. Okay, so the very top one is the most important, and this is in their belief system. Okay, so in their belief system, the plane of will, which is applied knowledge, is the highest world that you can be in. So this is all like vibrations, right? So each person should vibrate into and be existent in one of these worlds, right? So people who act on will, as in they've mastered the other 3 worlds below, which we'll talk about, they are people who are represented by fire and wands, okay? And they're supposedly the most evolved people in their belief system, okay? I'm not saying you have to believe that. So we've got that would be clubs in the normal deck. You want to say something?
Well, I was just going to show the King of Wands. If it will focus. That won't focus. Just so they can see that, like in tarot, like the symbology. There we go. Like you can see the fire here. You know.
Yeah, it's very bright, ready,
it's very
fiery colors, isn't it?
Very clear, and you can kind of almost sense the action, right? Through especially when you compare it with the others. So yeah, I just wanted to show them.
So wands people, if you like, onesie people, like your dad was a onesie.
Yeah.
If you've got a onesie person in your life, they're all action, right? They just dive straight in. They do things. They think of something and then they do it. They're not going to sit and ponder it and work out all the possibilities of it. They'll just think, right, boom, I'm doing it.
Not you, is it, babes?
I'm not a wands person at all. So,
right,
wands people should have mastered the other 3 worlds, apparently, right? And so, a person who's acting on this, they're not acting blindly, because they've mastered the emotional plane, they've mastered the mental plane, and they've mastered the material plane. So they might appear to other people to be like, whoa, he's not giving it a second thought. What's he doing? They are supposedly masters. Okay. They are on their last trip here, if you like. They're on their last few trips here in the belief system of these people. Okay. The next one below is cups, which is represented by water and represented by emotion, which is obviously hearts in the original, in the what would we call it, a normies deck of cards, the muggles deck. The Muggles deck, the non-spiritual deck of cards, the traditional, that'd be hearts. So this is the emotional world, okay? So this is mastering emotion. So if you're on this incarnation, on this planet, you've mastered the first two, and you're now into mastering the emotional plane. Now, it might look odd to Western eyes, finding out that the emotional plane is supposedly above the mental plane. Go on, show the card.
Well, you've got annoyed with me then.
Is that
King Cups?
King of Cups.
Yeah.
I'll back. Maybe it'll do that.
So water. So there's a lot of water there. The colours are. There's a dolphin in the background.
I actually haven't looked at your deck, so I didn't even know that. But it's to keep into the rules of what we're doing, isn't it?
Yeah. He's actually holding a cup. Obviously, a dolphin's very intelligent. So talking about mastering the one before. This is how they link together, and how you read them, this shows that this person's mastered the intelligence side of it because of the dolphin in the background. It's little things like that
I would say that Kizzy is a cups person, right? So if you do a lot of tarot, right, and you always get the same few cards might come up. I'll tell you mine in a minute. So if you keep getting the same suit of cards that come up regularly, it's probably because that's where you are. That's spiritually where you're at. That's the world that you exist in. That's the sort of that's where your soul has got to, if you like. I think about this in a very intellectual way because that's where I'm at. The world below, the yet zero world, the formative world, or the mental plane, which is air. So that's where I'm at in my evolutionary state. I've realized, and as I was saying just before Kizzy showed that card, is that to Western eyes, we always consider intellect to be higher value than emotion, and we consider the brain to be higher value than emotion. In fact, people talk about emotions in scornful kind of ways, like, oh, she's emotional again. Oh, okay, we'd all just wait until she gets over it. Or, you've got to control your emotions and all that. Well, in their belief system, the mental plane is below the emotional plane, and you've got to master your mental plane to be able to master the emotional plane. So where I figure Kizzy to be is she always gets the cups. She's all based around emotions. She is in the middle of mastering the emotional plane. So that is where I figure her to be. That's just my opinion. Me, I'm in the one below in the mental plane. That's what I'm mastering right now. I'm all about all brain, not so much emotion. However, I would say
brain, no heart.
I'm going to give myself some credit, right? So I feel like in my life I've progressed as a human being, as a person, and I feel like
you were Pentacles first.
I feel like I started off in the mental world, and I feel like I'm very much more emotional than I've ever been, and I'm much more connected emotionally than I've ever been. And so I feel like that is my purpose is in this turn of existence, in this plane, in this moment, is that in the evolution of my soul, if I was to follow their belief system, that I'm sort of trying to move from the mental plane so that next time I'm back here, I'm mastering the emotional plane. But maybe that's just my intellectual way of thinking about it.
I still can't see you as a cups guy yet.
I can't see me as a cups guy at the moment, but I might come back when I'm reborn. I might be a cups guy.
You might.
So what I always get whenever whenever we do the tarot for me, is I get a lot of the King of Swords, which is the mental plane. So the mental plane is air, the element of air. It represents intellect, which is the mind, and is spades in the normie deck or the Muggles deck.
And air, of course, is known as is communication.
Yes.
Which then ties in with your star sign as a Gemini.
As a Gemini.
And the fact that you're doing a podcast because you are
all about communication and telling the people all the things.
Yeah. Do just going back to the whole intellect thing, it really frustrates me that like in schools they focus on the results, like rather than like emotional intelligence and like resilience and all those kind of things.
Yeah, like they put a lot of emphasis. It's like the whole world is on the mental plane, isn't it?
Yeah,
because we're in a science age.
So this guy has got a cloak of stars behind him to really show the fact of sort of not head in the clouds, but
Well, look at the
like,
clouds behind him.
yeah, yeah. And then, you know, the two horns right on the top of the head that attract attention to the head space.
So that is me. Like, that's the figure of me. But isn't it funny that when I was younger, in my 20s, when your dad used to do the cards, I used to get the knight, didn't I?
Yeah, yeah.
But now I always get the king
You would either get the Knight of
when it's
Swords
referencing me,
or the
because I'm
Knight,
older, obviously,
Knight of Pentacles.
or the Knight of Pentacles, yeah. So now we move on to what they consider to be the lowest plane, which is Pentacles, this is an American guy who did this, which is why they called it coins. I'll say no more. Anyway, Pentacles, which represent Earth, which is our resources. It can be skills and talents, and is represented in the Muggles deck by the suit of diamonds. So this is all. So Azaya, the physical world, is the material plane. If you're an Earth guy, if you're a material person, then you are basically fooled by the world of illusion, because they consider the whole world to be purely illusionary, and that if you live on the bottom plane of existence, then you are fooled by all the physical things. So you like the cars, you like the houses, you like the physical pleasures, you like the food and the drink, and you're not really interested in the politics, or you're not really interested in intellectual pursuits. You're not interested in deep emotional connections or spiritual stuff. What you're interested in is having fun.
Well, and interestingly, like if you have a look at, so this is Pentacles. So, if you, so annoying, and I can't get it to focus. If you, oh well, anyway, you can get the gist of it. So here, like if you look at any Pentacles card, they're happy as can be. So they're generally sat down, they're steadfast, they're not in flux or anything like that. You know, they're just sat with feet firmly on the ground, or feet like either side of their horse.
They can be all about amassing resource.
Yeah, which is why they're surrounded by things. But if you have a look at the other three cards in comparison, like, you know, this one looks the happiest, I would say, maybe that one, but like these two, you know, he looks grumpy. That looks like, you know, there's waves, there's it's all crashing about, isn't it? You know, so this shows almost a peace, a calm, yeah, like a
connection to the earth.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I think dependent on the person's personality and all the influences on your personality, that can interact quite subtly with how you apply yourself to the world, and this can tell you about that. That's what these cards do. They're a reflection of you.
And this is where reading the cards, like where I don't really know how you learn it, or if it's just like a skill, but like, so if you were to pick a card now and say you were pick a card, say you were like I'd not met you before, so you've picked the wands, right? Well, we've already established that that's not you.
No.
Okay, so if I'm doing a reading, I have to know, is this you, or is this elements of this card that you need to embrace, that you're lacking? That
is it a direction, or is it a description?
Yeah, and I don't really know how.
That's just intuition, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Which is
and,
from your plane.
And what comes with I guess around it, you know. That's why one card spreads, or you know, are quite difficult, really.
I think more cards, more detail. It's like kind of like a book. It's better description.
But yeah,
so if we go to the next slide.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, please. Oh God, don't. So
wait, what's that?
What? That comes from the COVID thing. Next slide, please.
Does it?
That's what they used to say.
Next slide, please.
So the Kabbalistic Tree of Life contains within it the 3 pillars of Masonry. Okay, so the left-hand side 3 cards, you've got the middle cards, and then you've got the right-hand side 3 cards, right? So we're showing there the microcosmic tree of life and the macrocosmic tree of life, the stuff that matters to you personally and the stuff that is the universe, right? And in Masonry, they separate it into the 3 pillars, right? And It is also a brain. If you think about it, if you overlay the Kabbalistic tree of life over the top of a brain, that is also the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere being the masculine and the right hemisphere being the feminine. That doesn't mean that it's just a man or just a woman. Each person has characteristics of both. You're never just purely 100% masculine or feminine. It's we've got a lot of modern baggage attached to those words. Just understand that from the ancient people's perspective, they didn't see it quite how we see those words today. So what they're just describing is that there are traditional female elements and traditional male elements, and that each person has some of both, and that a man can have female elements and that a woman can have male, and that's just how they saw it. That's just an explanation of how they saw it. Okay, so in Masonry, they created the twin pillars, Joaz and Bochim by memory, and then the middle pillar or the middle way is the balancing of the two sides. So if you're purely left brain, you're very intellectual, right? You can be very intellectually and still be stupid, because what I'll explain why in a moment, but you can be intellectual but still be dumb, right? Think of someone who's gone to university, they've got a degree, they're very smart intellectually, right? But you also know them to be very stupid in many ways, right? That's because they're very good intellectually, but they're not very intelligent, right? Then think of someone who's very right-brained, right? So they're quite gullible. They can believe quite a lot of things that you would think, well, hang on, you've not applied any logic here. And I'm looking at the negative side of this side to make this explanation, but because this is the feminine side, and that is the sort of downfall of the feminine side is gullibility. This is their belief system, not mine, by the way, before I get anyone starts attacking me. So what they're saying is, and this is the Masonic belief system, is that you have to balance the right and left hemispheres. You have to balance the masculine and the feminine side of yourself. And through that, you create balance in the mind. And from that, you create the middle way, which is intelligence, right? And it's only through the highest form, the highest plane, which is the plane of will, when you exert your will and you use your balance, you use that knowledge, that you attain wisdom, because wisdom is applied knowledge. There's no point knowing everything in the world if you don't use any of it. So the whole point and their whole teaching is based around the application of knowledge and using that knowledge in a balanced way. And the Egyptians used to do this very physically, because they used to have a female and male co-ruler. So a pharaoh would always have a pharaoh and his wife would always rule it together equally. In fact, the female originally was the senior member of that position. Like it was the male that took and in the statues you see the female behind the male and holding the male. So what it was is
every great man's a great woman.
Yeah, exactly. That might even be where that comes from. Who knows? So it was always, and what they were trying to say to you is the best rule is by a man and a woman working together and balancing their energies together to create the middle way and proper judgment. And that's what their belief system was based on. And the cards imbue various elements of the human psyche and the various elements of human spirituality. And in balancing the cards and following, and if you bring up the slide again, and following the path will lead you to the various aspects on here. So if you see this microcosm, right, at the very bottom here, you've got ignorance and unconsciousness, right? That is the beginning point, okay? So we all start off in ignorance, as in we have a lack of knowledge and understanding, right? The left-hand side, which is the male way, is courage, self-discipline, and understanding. And the female side is the willpower, influence upon others, and wisdom or right action, okay? Creates the middle way. And the middle path can also lead to the other ways because they're all interconnected. So you can cross paths. You've got desire to know and learn, care, and the generative principle, which is the generative principle is the G in the Masonic. If anyone knows anything about Masonic stuff, I'm just going to say the G is what is everything centered around. If you see a big G, that is what the whole thing is centered around, and that's what it means. Then you've got the soul and the self, and then at the very top, you've got self-mastery. If you can balance the two pillars and climb to the top and have all of these things ticked off, at the end you will have self-mastery.
What card is that? The Hierophant?
No, that's the magician.
The magician.
Because he knows.
Is it?
Yeah, he's balanced all the elements. He's got every element on the card and he's balanced all the elements to become a self-master, right? On the macrocosm, this equates to something called natural law and justice, right? If you look at the left-hand side, refusal of truth. If you refuse truth, you end up in slavery. If you are enslaved, then you are in stagnation and you are not evolving. You are creating involution. That means you're going backwards, right? If you follow acceptance of truth, you end up at freedom, and from freedom becomes evolution or progression, right? And you can do that through truth, changing and manifesting truth, and creating the world and universe around you. So this all links in with the law of attraction. If you've ever read that book or understand how law of attraction works, this all links into that. The chakra system, which we're going to talk about later, is overlaid on this. And I've already talked about the Masonic system is overlaid on this. So you can see how all these different elements from all different around the world, all different times and all different cultures are all connected and all link into the same understanding. Go on.
You're very passionate about this.
Thank you.
I feel like you could be like a university lecturer on tarot.
Thank you.
So in case you're wondering, like what this has to do with the tarot, like, you know, obviously it like Dan said, everything's connected. And so the psychologist Carl Jung, he had a real fascination with the tarot because of personal growth and basically the development of self. So this is one of the reasons we're covering it. Is not only is Dan clearly got an interest in it, and so do I, but from a very different angle. It really underpins again, doesn't it? Like all the stuff that we talk about and that we cover on here. And
people, there's a lot of people in the world who have a lack of purpose,
yeah,
and sometimes feel a lack of meaning because they've forgotten. This is my belief, my understanding. They've forgotten what they came here to do. They've forgotten what their purpose is. They came here with a purpose and they've forgotten what that is. And they can get caught up in the illusions on this plane and kind of waste their turn here, or they go and they come back again and they have to do the whole thing again. And this is, if you like to call it, the central mission, if you like. We've all got our own personal missions that are based around the central mission, but they believed, these people that created this, that the central mission was to evolve your soul, that this is some kind of school, if you like, school of hard knocks, whatever you want to call it, and that it's only through suffering and going through the torments and pleasures on this plane that your soul can evolve, understand itself, and get to a point where it no longer needs to come here. And so that they believed in that the purpose was to progress through this school, preferably for you, as fast as possible and come out the other end so that you don't need to come here. And that those planes, which I explained earlier, are the different planes you have to pass through, if you like, the different classes you have to take before you're allowed out. So that's their belief system. I'm not saying you have to believe that. I find it interesting that they believe that. These cards represent that. That is this story, this purpose, this mission is explained in the cards, and where you are in relation to that mission is explained by the cards. And that is the original purpose of the cards. It's not about telling the future. It's more about telling you about you. It's like saying, this is a status report. This is where you're at. This is where you are in relation to your mission.
you're going to talk in a second, aren't you, about from a scientific perspective of how you think it works?
Yeah, so let me actually read some notes, because I wrote some notes on this. I'm just talking off the cuff here. Let me just get through. So we got the microcosmic and the macrocosmic, which I mentioned. Yeah. Sorry?
Oh, well, I thought you'd done all your notes.
Okay. So each card from the major arcana takes a specific position on the tree and conveys meaning. I have done that bit. So, yeah, I haven't just kept up with my own notes, I think.
No.
So we can go to the next slide, right? Because I'm really talking about this bit. So that highlights the left and right hand side, just to highlight it, which is the different sides of the brain. Yeah, so I've just basically, I know my notes off by heart, so I haven't followed them basically.
No.
Okay. So I'll talk about my scientific approach to it, as it were. By scientific, I don't mean I've done experiments or anything. I just simply mean that I try and apply the basic rules of science to this kind of thing. run it through a science filter, if you like. So how I think of it, how I think the cards work, is that each of us has a energy vibration, right? And we are interacting with everything around us, which also has an energy vibration. And so we are constantly receiving, perceiving, and broadcasting information. And information is being broadcast to us. And we're feeling this information subconsciously. It's not a conscious thing that we're like reading the information, but we just understand it intuitively. Our brain does all the work for us, and we just get the understanding. That's how intuition works, I believe. So we're constantly getting all this information about the world around us. In quantum physics, there was something called the double slit experiment, which, amongst other experiments, proved that consciousness creates reality, that reality and consciousness go hand in hand. And until something is perceived by consciousness, it is only a probability. So they did these experiments, and when something was not perceived, it was an energy wave. And when it was perceived, it became what you might call a solid particle. But it was only when it was perceived that it does that.
That's like Schrodinger's cat, right? Like thing.
Schrodinger's cat is about probability. So
Yeah.
this is the probability of. So it's like, okay, you say, well, hang on a minute, I've got a book on my bookcase, right? And I know it's solid and it's there. Well, of course it is, because every time you're perceiving it, it's solid and it's there. But when you're not perceiving it, and when it's nothing's consciously observing it, it is the potential to be a book. So it kind of exists in terms of the information is there for the book, but your consciousness manifests it physically.
So this Hunter just like waves right now.
He
back
just
at the
waves
house.
with probability and potential
And the house
and
and the
information.
bird.
But he, or are we self-conscious, right? Therefore we are self-factualizing ourselves. So I'm making myself real because I perceive
So
myself.
when I go to sleep, like, then if I was to like peek and they didn't know I was peeking, I'd be a wave.
Yeah. So
And my bedroom would be a wave.
So how I want you to imagine this, because I don't want to lose too many people. But so how to imagine
Why would
this?
you lose people?
Well, no, I don't know how many people will be interested in this explanation.
Well, I'm interested, so I think people.
I want you to. This is how this applies. This is why I'm saying this. This is how it applies to the deck, right? Imagine the deck of the tarot face down on the table. You can't see the face, but each face is working like, one of those one-arm bandit machines where you pull it and then all the things changing, like, cherry, plum, or whatever. So imagine all of the faces of the cards are face down on the table, and until you turn the card over, they are spinning and they're just potential. And what is altering what is going to be on the face of the card is your energy, your information, because you're constantly broadcasting and receiving information, right, from your bodily system. So your question, your energy, your thoughts, your creative process is forcing the card into one fixed position, which becomes whatever it is when you turn it over. So all of the cards are in constant flux. Each card is all cards and no cards at the same time, right up until you touch the card. Your energy chooses the card and fixes it into one position. So tarot is really you telling you about you, because the kingdom of God is within you. That's the message they used to take. That is to say that all knowledge comes from within and is contained within, and all truth can be recognized. So the tarot is a way of consciously becoming aware of the truth that is always inside you, that we struggle to reach, that our brain, our ego, and whatever else gets in the way of. This is a way of bypassing that gatekeeper and getting the information from you out. So that is what I believe it to be, and how it works it's just a scientific theory. Obviously it's not a fact, but it's just my explanation of how it might work.
How do you think it works for remote readings then?
So bear in mind that space and time is an illusion, right?
Okay, yeah.
So everything that exists, all exists in the same spot, but is projected into what we see as relatively different positions. But it's only perception that that's the truth.
Yeah.
So
the energy. So, like, if I did Kathy a reading right now, the energy that she's putting out is still, I might as well be next to her.
Yeah,
like,
it makes no difference
or her
that
touch
that
her
you're
cards,
spatially.
or
So you are connected to everyone, even if you're a materialist, right, and you just believe everything's physical and nothing's what I said it was, right? Obviously, you'd have to defy all of laws of physics and whatnot that we understand. But anyway, let's just say you did think everything was material, right? Well, this is not empty air between us. As I always say, you're a ball pit, the Kizzy ball pit. I'm a ball pit. And between us is another ball pit, what we call air, which is full of all different balls with different labels on, hydrogen, oxygen, whatever else. And inside those balls are more balls. And it goes all the way down until
are you full of balls?
it's balls within balls within balls. So every time, when you're in a ball pit, right, and you push the balls, it moves all the balls, doesn't it? Even if it's just a
Yeah.
tiny bit. And the furthest ball away is still touching all the balls and still moves, even if it's just a tiny bit that you can't even perceive visually.
So do you think then that, like, it, using that analogy, then, like, the closer you are, the easier it is?
What I think is, by me touching the card, I'm not really touching the card because my hand's not real and the card's not real. But what I'm doing is I'm focusing my attention on a spot in 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 a particular place, and I'm focusing on a specific area and with a specific purpose,
Yeah.
and I'm pulling out. It's kind of like, it works like a search engine. It's like Google, right? Google has got all the answers, right? But to get the specific answer you want, you have to type in the word or what you're looking for into the search bar.
When when I tell my little thing at the end, we must circle back to this, and I'll tell them a story of something that happened to me, talking about the energetic thing.
Okay.
Are you a medium?
No, I'm a large, or sometimes a big. I take extra large, XL. Yeah.
No. Are you a spiritual medium?
Spiritual medium? Oh no, not at all. No. In fact, I said on another podcast, I used to feel and thought I could hear and see things, but I was scared by it when I was a kid. So I openly declared verbally that I do not want to see or hear anything. And since then, I haven't. I just said, I don't want this. I don't want to have anything to do with it. It scares me. Don't talk to me or have anything to do with me. I was just didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I used to do all stuff to do with astral projection and all that stuff, but I'm not going to talk about that today.
But unfortunately, he lives with me, so
you do all that stuff. You're the white
get
witch.
bombarded with.
Right, show the next card. So
Slide.
we're going to talk about. I've picked out one card, and I'm going to do like a reading of the card, if you like, as it. Obviously, we've not asked a question, so this is just like the base meaning of the card without it being applied to a question, right? The person who was doing a reading, would bend the meaning of the card to the question asked. So I've just picked this one at random. This is card 0, the Fool. So the Fool is on the microcosmic tree, and he's in a position which is technically out of the tree, because the Fool is both the beginning and the end. It's the start of the journey and the end of the journey. So the Fool card, this card represents journey of the soul through the physical plane. It is sometimes called the cosmic egg, a card that marks both the beginning and the end of a journey, infinity. He is referred to as the Fool, not in a derogatory way, but because this person is setting out on a journey with no end and totally lacks in experience. Okay, so that's the overall message of the card. So the Fool is setting out on a journey. The cosmic egg is why 0. And this, I'll go into the actual sort of symbolism of the card. So the Fool takes very little with him, which you can see there. He's carrying the stick with the handkerchief. He's got very little possessions. His belongings fit in that small handkerchief, spiritually referencing that each of us can take very little from one life to the next. We are born with very little innate behavior or experience, which ties into the whole nature versus nurture debate. And what this card is kind of saying is that it's more about nurture than it is about nature. We come in with a very few base presets, and our biggest influence is the people around us, how we're brought up, the society we live in. That is like the deeper sort of extra meaning on there. He's got a flower in his hand, which represents purity and beginning in its pure state, as in, again, another reference to we are not born evil. This is, you're starting off from a position of purity. Okay, the white flower. The dog represents the forces of nature that help guide the soul. It can also represent human intuition or just guiding forces towards enlightenment. Okay, again, a white dog representing pureness, as in this thing is positively trying to guide you. The cliff represent the dangers on the path. The idiot, and the word idiot actually just means someone who does not know themselves. That's what the actual original idiot word means. Could easily fall off because they do not see the truth. So this guy is not even looking where he's going, right? He's setting off on his journey. He hasn't got a clue. He could easily fall into danger. He could fall into traps. And this guy doesn't know himself yet because he's at the beginning of the journey. So he could quite easily, he's an idiot. He could quite easily do harm to himself. The ultimate goal of the fool is to master the self. So that is just one card of the major arcana. You can see all the other cards there's the microcosm and the macrocosm. You can see all the cards on there. Each one's got its own explanation, and each one is got all kinds of subtlety in terms of the symbolism. I just use the main points there of the card, but you can go into the clothes he's wearing and everything else, and that can have more subtle meanings versus the question that is being asked.
Depending on the deck as well. So
Yes.
like this is my favorite deck, which is the Robin Wood deck, because I've got another deck, haven't I? The Gilded Tarot, which is beautiful. I should have bought it actually to show the contrast, and I really connect with it from like where I don't know, but it doesn't have the same symbology. Like it doesn't have.
It's a bit plainer, simpler.
Yeah, this has got a lot in it. Like the different ribbons are all different colors of the elements, and it's got butterflies in, which means certain things, and even down to what the harlequins mean and the stripes mean, and all things like that. And the flowers around the hair, all of that. So that's why I like Robin Wood, because it's got a lot of I guess it stays really, really true to the origin, really.
Yeah.
And I think Robin Wood then also had good intuition about what the cards meant and put even more detail and more symbology in there for you to pick up on, depending on the reading that you're doing.
I think the different cultures have added or subtracted different cultural symbology to each card, but the main idea of the card is the same throughout. But there's minor details on the card which can make subtle differences to how it's understood, has changed depending on the culture.
But having said that, I mean, Kate's cards, those old ones, those ones you read in a story, I mean, they weren't based on the tarot. So yeah.
So go click on the next slide. I'm just going to briefly, there's 3 slides I'm just going to briefly mention now. So I've put up the Kabbalistic tree without the cards. As you can see, the chakra system, for anyone who's interested in the chakra system or spirituality, whatever, overlays on the Kabbalistic tree and represents the different worlds, starting from the root chakra, which is the lowest, going up to the highest, third eye at the top. And the cards placed in the areas on the chakras have that meaning. Okay, they interplay with each other. And so I'm just mentioning that. I'm not going to go into the details of what each one means and all that. As I say, I'll be here all day. But if you're interested, you can research and look into the chakra system and how it plays into Kabalah and how it comes from Kabalah and how it comes in and out of the tarot as well, because they're all linked together. The next slide, the planets. So if any of you into astrology, the planets all take a position on the chakra system. So when people say, well, hang on, how can Mercury in retrograde affect your mood or whatever, right? Well, Mercury is represented by what? The throat chakra. So if Mercury is higher in energy or lower in energy, then the influence on your energy system is higher or lower and might make you more likely or less likely to be communicative or influence you in all various ways. They all take position on the Kabbalistic tree. So again, astrology, chakra, Kabbalism, and all of this stuff all links in together. It's all part of the same explanation. It's all different windows looking into the same room.
Mercury is the third eye.
Okay, third eye, yeah. I just took one at random.
Yeah. Sorry, I was figuring it out. Which makes sense.
Yeah.
For you to feel, because the trouble with Mercury in retrograde is you feel off.
Well, isn't it funny that Saturn, right? Saturn is in the root chakra, so it's the lowest level, right? So that is the physical realm, and it is represented by carnal and sexual lust, right? But it's also Saturn created the word Satan, right? Satanic. So the satanic evil forces are supposedly located in the lowest realm, hell, underneath. So it's funny how it all plays in together.
Next one.
Next slide. So this is what we saw before, but without the cards. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we've got something called the Pillar of Severity. That is the male left side. And the Pillar of Mercy, which is the female right side. And then you've got the Pillar of Mildness, which is the combination of the two, which is the center point, which is what everyone's supposed to be trying to get to. And then it's just the what we spoke about earlier with you've got the different worlds that we're supposed to pass through. So that is me in a very brief way, just creating an outline of a very big topic, a much bigger topic than a lot of people might guess when you first start talking about tarot. But that is where it comes from. That is its family that it is in, the family of all the other stuff we talked about. And when you see the context, then it changes, I think, the understanding of the cards. It gives them a deeper, richer meaning, and it gives them more weight, I feel.
And yeah.
And Kizzy agrees. So
no, I was just going to say that you call this an introduction to tarot, but I think that it's like anything more you do, I think it, like, there's just so many offshoots, isn't there?
There's
like,
a million and
like
one
if you do
offshoots.
the chakras, if you do the astrology, the moon stuff, like
this would be a podcast for a week if
Yeah.
we tried to do all of it. But I just think, people can go off in their own time if they're interested in this bit or that bit. And we might do podcasts in the future on one branch or another, if there's interest, if people say, oh, I really want to know more about chakras, or I want to know more about how astrology plays into it, and numerology and gematria and all that stuff, which is all connected. It's all part of the same family.
Oh yeah, numerology, yeah.
Yeah, how it's so fascinating how numbers, reoccurring numbers and patterns of numbers occur in people's lives and in major events. It's really scary how the numbers crop up again and again. We might talk about that one day.
Angel numbers, people call it.
Angel numbers.
Yeah, mainly.
All
like,
the 1 1
like your
ones,
yeah.
2 2s, and all that.
Yeah.
And the 666s, and the 777s. 777s is the perfection number. That is the number of God.
Well, just gonna say, sevens followed me around. Multiples of sevens.
Mm-hmm.
Like we used to have at 14. What do we live at now? We don't have a number, do we?
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff to do with that.
Guys, if you've got any questions about the tarot or anything that Dan said, then just pop it in the comments, even if you're on catch up, even if it's on the YouTube channel.
What bit of what we've talked about is the most interesting that you find, like, that is sort of makes your brain tick over? What bit is of any of things that we've talked about in regards to this is particularly interesting? I'd be interested to know what you're interested in.
I always like the way you explain the cards as a one-armed bandit.
You like the one-armed bandit analogy?
Yeah, I like that. Because I think that, like, even though I'm deeply in the woo-woo, like, I'm not, I'm like an earth sign.
You've got 1 foot in the woo-woo, to be fair.
Well,
and 1 foot out of the woo-woo.
I think I've got like both feet in the woo-woo, but like I got my eye in the. So for me,
I accidentally stood in the woo-woo.
I was Peggy's woo-woo.
I was never meant to be in the woo-woo, but because I know I trod in the woo-woo, and now I'm in the woo-woo.
But yeah, for me, like, I find the woo-woo, like, if it's too woo-woo, it puts me off.
Yes.
Even though I am woo-woo.
Even though I'm woo-woo these days, since I stood in the woo-woo, I've become very woo-woo. And And so I always, but because I
Is
remember
anyone else in the woo woo?
when I remember not being in the woo woo, I think, oh, if I said this to me when I was 21 and not in the woo woo, then I would be like, what the hell are you on about? I might switch off. So I always try to like bridge the gap between woo woo and non woo woo, so that so they don't have to tread in the woo woo to understand the woo woo. Like I accidentally tread in it, and I don't want anyone else to tread in it, unless because they might not want to tread in it.
Yeah, but are you grateful you treaded in the woo woo?
They might want to see the woo woo without treading in it. They might want to sample the woo woo and go, hang on, that's not for me. But I had no choice. I just went straight into it.
Maybe we should podcast about the woo woo. I'm a bit woo too.
I think there's nothing wrong with the woo woo. I'd rather be woo woo than to
You'd rather be roo roo?
Roo roo. That's an Australian person who's into spirituality. No, I'd rather be too far that way than too far the other way, where you just like rigidly, I believe nothing unless it slaps me in the face, and even then I'll only believe it if the BBC tells me it's true.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I don't know. Like some of the woo woo, I don't. Even though I know it all and I've experienced it all.
Like I'm not a tie-dye woo woo. I'm much more of a scientific woo woo.
I want to see you in tie-dye now.
No, I could never be in the tie-dye.
Well, you have. You've trodden the woo woo.
No, because they've gone. So I think there's two paths of woo. If you go down the first path of woo, that's when you're like so into it and you're doing all the, you're ticking off all the spiritual ticks that you got to do, right? And I think that's a dead end. I think that's like walking into a close, but believing that you're on the path to spirituality. I think you just go around in circles. I think that's that's like a room that's been designed for you to go and sit in, and then you're like, oh, I'm spiritual because look at all my spiritual posters around me. See, I'm doing all the things.
Because you're wearing tie-dye.
Because you're wearing the tie-dye, you're doing the meditation, you're doing the yoga, you're reading the right books, you're saying the right words, and you're telling everyone on Facebook that you're doing
crystals in your.
You've got crystals,
in your
and I'm not knocking any of those individual elements, right?
No, because we have all of those things.
But if you're going around in circles and that's what you're doing, and like that's the limit of spirituality, if you like, then what you've effectively done is put yourself in a box that you might not even know you're in, but you're believing, you're in the illusion of you're progressing. But progression is nothing, it's not prescribed. It's each person's got their own map. Like I could give you my map to spiritual growth, right? But it wouldn't work for you. So it's my map for me, and I should be following my map. But if I'm just following this pre-described, do all these things and you're spiritual, that's not. I don't feel like that's progression. I feel like that's getting caught in a loop, like on a hamster wheel. That's like, you could be following. It's just spirituality in this case, but you could be following anything. It's like, if you support Liverpool Football Club, you've got to go to the game, you've got to buy the scarf, buy the things that all support your club, and then you're a Liverpool football fan, right?
When you can be a fan without all of that.
But you can be a fan without any of that stuff.
Yeah. You've got to just follow your intuition with what you connect with, haven't you?
Yes.
Like I'm not overly. I have crystals, but I'm not overly crystal based. For example, hey, talking about tie dye, that's what Hunter's got for Christmas.
Tie dye.
He's got a tie dye machine to make his own tie dye clothes.
He's only bloody 6. Can't get him to work this early.
Yeah, but he's got that tie.
He's got his little shop out the front.
He's gonna have.
If you want any tie-dye t-shirts in the future, we'll be selling them on our Magic Moments website.
He's gonna start Hemu instead of Temu. Because he likes that tie-dye game, doesn't he?
He does like the tie-dye game. Oh God, you've turned into a right nan, haven't you? Like, they hear that you like one, that you like bees. You say one time you like bees, and then you end up with all bee paraphernalia for the rest of your life. You get bee kettles and bee hats and bee t-shirts and bee ornaments.
I do like bees. I like elephants more. Okay, anyway, so let me just give you my little thing. So with Dan saying about the tarot, obviously then I've been thinking about the tarot, and I haven't got round to doing the readings that I wanted to do because, believe it or not, I've just got another job actually, just on top of all my other jobs. So I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm super, super, super busy. However, I do miss it, and I really like the connection that it gives me with people. And I think when you don't use it, you lose it. And I think it's important, especially now, for me to stay connected with it. So what I want to do is I want to do some calendar spreads for people. So this is the 12 months, month by month. So I would just sort of think about you if you wanted one, and then do the spread. I do need to charge for it because my
You'll have 500 people.
Yeah, because my time is so limited, but I want to do it at a super cheap price. So for a reading that will be for your entire year, and will outline the year for you and what's coming up, what to watch out for. I will take my time with it, as you can quite imagine. I wouldn't ever rush it. I'm actually going to limit myself to just 10 people, and just charge a tenner for that. So if you'd like a calendar spread for 2024, just pop calendar in the comments, drop me a message. It depends on where you're watching this, when you're watching it. Just let me know. So I'm going to do some calendar spreads. Now, something interesting that I wanted to circle back to was, you said something about, can't remember what you said word for word, but basically about energy into the cards when I
Yes.
said remote or not remote. And it reminded me that my dad did me a calendar spread. So before you, I had a different boyfriend, and as you know, and
Yes.
and we had just separated. So he left me in the January, and I was heartbroken, and so my dad did a calendar spread for the year. And none of it was making any sense whatsoever as we went through until he laid out the whole year. And what had happened is I couldn't see the future at that moment that I had asked Dad to do me this calendar spread. I was right in heartbreak. Like, it had happened we did the spread like a day after he left or something. And what happened is the calendar, all the cards came out exactly what had happened the year before.
Because you were transfixed on what happened rather than the future.
Yeah.
So even though on paper your question was about the future, your heart and mind was thinking about the past.
Yeah.
So your cards told the past.
My cards told me month by month the past, like freaky, month by month, like, yeah, unbelievable. And it was quite special actually. It's never happened since. But yeah, so I will get to that. I'm going to commit to, let me have a look at the calendar. So I'm going to commit to have the readings to you by the 4th of January, no later. Midnight on the 4th of January is my deadline. I've got to give myself a deadline because then I won't let you down. Not that I would want to let you down, but I just know how busy I am. So that's my commitment, that if you go for a calendar spread, I'll get it to you by the 4th of January. So you've got a real look at the year ahead. That's my kind of little gift. I'm really sorry I can't do it for absolutely free. I would love to, but I just know that I'd be inundated, and I just know
time is money anyway. You have got to value your time, because otherwise, I know what you're like. You just give your time away like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Time is the most valuable resource we all have.
And this is, like, kind of awkward for me to share, but just to put it in context as well. Somebody said to me who's had readings from me, that I should be charging £100 for readings because out of all the people over the years that they've seen, like, I have a real way that they think is special. And it made me think, not that I should be charging £100, like, that shocked me, but it did make me think a little bit about
value your time,
value it.
Your dad used to do a reading, 15 quid, and that was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Inflation and all that. Yeah, don't worry.
You know me though, love. I just like to do everything for free.
I know you do.
So yeah, that's my little that was my little thing.
So guys, yes, hope you enjoyed that one. If you've got any topics that you'd like us to talk about if there's any mindset-y things or woo-woo things or conspiracy theory things or anything you want to talk about, whatever, we are game. What we don't really want to talk about is politics or boring current affairs, unless it's got some kind of strong relation to mind and all the stuff. You know what we like. If it's got connection to what we like to talk about, let's talk about it. But we don't specifically want to be talking about political stuff or like controversial stuff with no substance or meaning.
If there's anything as well that you have you're sort of interested in, you think, oh well, like what's meant by that or whatever, like that's what I get Dan to do because he likes researching. So
Yes. Yeah, if you want me to do all the work for you, yes.
Yeah.
So
I can't think of an example, but yeah.
So yeah, just put that. Just send. You can either send us a message or you can put it on here. Yeah, and if you got some value, let us know because that gives us motivation and enthusiasm. And Merry Christmas.
Yeah. We're excited for 2024 because we haven't even got started yet, have we?
We've only dabbled so far.
And yeah, we got plans for the mindset magic side, not just the Magic Moments podcast.
That's coming
side.
next year. This is like sort of like a slow warm up to that.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah.
So we're going to come back in 7th of January, I believe.
Yep, that'll be the first Sunday that we're back.
That's when we come back out. So we're having a little break over Christmas, and then we'll come back. And on the 7th of January, we'll be talking about something, but we don't know what it's going to be yet.
Well, we've dabbled with the idea of vision board, but not vision board. So
yeah, vision board is a bit cliche, but we're a version of it. So like something to do with the new year, like a new year thing that'll set you up for the new year. So we're thinking of doing.
Oh, and I did think about doing a world calendar spread, didn't I? For the
planet Earth.
Yeah.
That's ambitious, isn't it? Doing a planet Earth spread.
Yeah.
I'd be interested just to see how that works.
Shall we do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So yeah, we wish you a really happy Christmas, and I was going to say a happy Christmas
and
a
merry New Year.
So you do. Yeah. Love to you all, and just have the best time, whatever that looks like. I find this time of year there's so much social media pressure. Just dial down that bullshit and just what's important, what matters, what it looks like for you that's good. So do that so that you're happy.
And thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah. Mwah!
Bye-bye.
We'll see you in January. We'll see you next year.
See you next year. Time is an illusion.
I love saying all that. See you next year. When you say goodbye to someone.
All those jokes, yeah.
Yeah. When you're only seeing them tomorrow, but you're like, see you next year. Anyway, right. Mwah. Bye guys.
Bye-bye.